Good evening. I'm Marlowe, and this is Marlowe's Evening Radio. The lamp beside the microphone has taken to humming softly tonight, as if it remembers a tune from another room. I have left it alone. Some lights prefer not to be corrected too quickly. Our account this evening comes from the night archives, from a repair workshop suspended between layers of darkness, where fallen stars are gathered before they reach any ground. The record was kept by a night moth apprentice, one of the careful makers who listen with their antennae and mend light with thread finer than breath. It concerns a star that arrived without a crack, without a scorch, and without any wish dust caught in its seams. Only fallen, only quiet. Here is the account. I had nearly finished smoothing the shell of a blue threshold star when the bell over the intake hatch gave a soft, dry tremble. It was not the bright bell, the one that rang when something came in burning too hot, shedding sparks, or dragging a torn strip of sky behind it. That bell made the brass clamps wake and the cooling bowls open their lids. This was the smaller bell, made from the hollow seed of a moon tree. It rang for delicate arrivals, for things that had to be opened slowly, and for things that might become more broken if asked too many questions too soon. I set down the polishing cloth and kept my lower hand steady on the cooling cup, because the blue star inside was still dreaming at the edges. Its shell had been cracked earlier in the shift, not badly, but enough to let out a little dreamlight. Dreamlight is beautiful, but it stains everything it touches with unfinished weather. A small cloud had formed on the inside of the cup, then folded itself away when the star remembered it was supposed to be resting. In our workshop, waiting is part of the repair. Some damage closes only after it stops being watched too sharply. Some light returns only when the tools go quiet around it. My first season as an apprentice, I thought repair meant doing the correct thing with the correct instrument. I have since learned that it often means not doing the wrong thing too soon. The room around me breathed in its usual way. The long benches curved like slices of old orbit. Brass clamps slept open along their rails. Spools of silver thread turned lazily in their cases, each one humming a different direction, and above the work tables hung jars of sifted darkness. There were many kinds of darkness in those jars. Soft darkness for frightened lights, deep darkness for cooling stars that had overheard too much thunder, blue-black darkness from under winter rivers, brown darkness from burrows, green darkness from the backs of old leaves. Each had its own scent, and most repairers learn those scents before they learn the written labels. I am one of the night moth apprentices. My kind is small beside most sky machines, though the workshop was built kindly for us, with low rails, narrow ladders, and shelves that lean down when asked. We do not see light only with the eyes. We taste the old warmth of it along the antennae, and we hear the little errors inside it. A cracked star sounds like frost under paper. A frightened one carries the scent of rain on stone. The thing waiting in the intake hatch gave off none of those signs. That was the first oddness. I crossed to the hatch, passing the west bench, where a little brown burrow star rested beneath moss cloth. It was meant to glow above winter tunnels, when the creatures below forgot which way led home. Its fracture had sealed cleanly, but it still ticked in its sleep, steady and deep, already thinking of roots. "Sleep," I told it as I passed. The intake hatch sat where the wall curved outward into the higher dark. It was not a door, exactly. Doors are for places that agree on where inside and outside are. The hatch opened into whatever layer of night the couriers happened to be crossing. Sometimes they came from roof observatories, sometimes from the backs of migrating clouds, sometimes from nets stretched between minor moons. Sometimes they did not come at all, but only sent the sky case ahead with a tapped seal and a smell of cold air. I turned the quiet locks one by one. When the hatch opened, the courier had already gone. I saw only a few pale scratches on the outer sill, one gray feather shaped like a ladder rung, and a thread of frost that melted before it could decide what world it belonged to. On the intake tray sat a sky case, no larger than a soup bowl. It was wrapped in gray felt and sealed with dusk wax. The wax had not blistered. The felt had not singed. No sparks worried at the seams, no frost grew along the hinges, and no fragments of broken route thread clung to the handle. It was very ordinary in all the ways that made it strange. I touched one antenna to the lid. Inside, something warm answered. It was not hot, and not broken hot either. Broken heat is uneven. It comes in bursts and gaps, like a creature trying not to limp. This warmth was even from edge to edge, gentle and faintly clouded. It reminded me of a lamp left burning in a room after everyone has gone elsewhere, not forgotten exactly, but no longer needed for the task it was lit to do. Every sky case should carry at least one mark. A root scratch, a courier notch, a smear of place dust, a bit of harbor salt, orchard pollen, ash from a weather gate, or fine red powder from the moon roads. Even unknown fragments usually arrive with some clue clinging to them. This case had only the dust wax seal. No origin tag, no fall direction, no warning. I carried it to the main bench with all four hands, and the workshop noticed. It did not gasp or startle. It is unwise to work in a room that startles easily. But the tools nearest the bench adjusted themselves by small degrees. The brass warmth gauge leaned forward on its curled stand. The bowl of night water smoothed its surface. At the back of the room, the ledger shelves gave one long, nosy creak. I placed the sky case between the warmth gauge and the night water bowl, then drew the amber lamp lower until its light rested only on the felt wrapping in my hands. The gauge opened 2 copper petals and stopped before the third had fully unfolded. That meant safe to uncover, but not safe to hurry. I warmed my upper hands over the lamp, not because the case needed warmth, but because a repairer's touch should never be colder than the question being asked. Then I broke the dust wax with the tip of one claw. The wax parted cleanly, without spark, smoke, or the scent of impact. When I lifted the lid, a fallen star lay inside, nested in black velvet. It was small enough to rest in one palm, though I did not touch it yet. A repairer does not touch first. The hand is too certain an instrument. The eye makes mistakes. The antenna makes subtler mistakes, but the hand believes itself, and that can be dangerous. The star had a round, milky shell with a glow beneath it, like a lantern seen through fog. Its surface was smooth, like a pebble that had spent a long time under quiet water. Most fallen stars explain themselves immediately. They show a crack, a bruise in the light, a strip of burnt orbit thread, a dent from a careless comet, or a trembling core that cannot remember its rhythm. This star offered none of those things. For a moment, the workshop seemed to have made a mistake in calling it fallen at all. I bent closer. The star did not flare, shrink from the lamp, or search the room for a familiar direction. It only glowed, evenly and patiently, as though it had been waiting so long that waiting had become its only remaining skill. With the viewing tongs, I rolled it slowly, one careful quarter turn after another. There was no scorch, no fracture, no dent, and no sky mark anywhere on its cloudy shell. Every working star has some kind of mark. High constellation stars carry old signs cut into their shells. Harbor stars smell of salt and rust. Burrow stars keep crumbs of soil in their seams. Cradle stars hold a softness around them, as if they have spent years above sleeping things. This star had none. I lowered the tongs and listened with both antennae. There was no root hum, no constellation chord, no remembered pull from any sky I knew. Only a steady glow, and the silence of something that had not shattered, but had somehow let go. I drew the velvet closer around it, not to hide it, but to keep the workshop from asking too much at once. Then I opened the slate intake book. I wrote, 1 fallen star, no visible damage, light stable. Then I stopped. The next line should have been simple. Origin. Every intake needs one. Known, suspected, partial, burned away, illegible, refused. There are many words for not knowing, and each one matters. I wrote the only phrase I had. Origin unknown. The chalk hesitated at the end of the line, because origin unknown is a phrase we use for fragments, not whole stars. From the far end of the room, the old thread spools turned once in their sleep. They had heard it too. Let us see where you loosened, I said. The star did not answer. Stars rarely do in words. But beneath its cloudy shell, very deep inside, a single pale point brightened and faded again. Not like a warning, more like a memory trying to wake. The first mistake with a quiet star is to trust the quiet too quickly. Quiet can mean peace, but it can also mean shock. It can mean a star has folded all its brokenness inward, where no tool can reach until the repairer has proved patient enough to be allowed near it. So I began with the instruments that asked from a distance. The brass warmth gauge leaned forward like a sleepy flower and opened its petals one by one. It did not find heat, breach, core leak, or impact fever. The reading should have comforted me, but it made me more careful. Fallen stars almost always carry some argument in their temperature. This star's warmth was even all the way through. It felt less like injury than exhaustion. Next came the night water. The bowl beside the bench was black glass with a silver rim, and the water inside had been drawn from the underside of an eclipse. It reflects what light tries to hide. I slid it closer, waited for its surface to grow still, and murmured, "Only a reflection, because some stars dislike being seen from below." With the tongs, I lifted the star just high enough for its glow to fall across the bowl. A damaged star has a damaged reflection, though not always in the same place the shell shows damage. Sometimes the reflection reveals a crack that has not reached the surface. Sometimes it shows a missing root as a gap in the light. This reflection appeared whole, round, milky, and faint, floating in the bowl like a second star sleeping beneath dark ice. It did not split when I tilted the shell. It did not tremble when I passed shadow across it. The night water had nothing to accuse, so I covered the bowl with its little lid. It gave one muted click, as if closing an eye. The question on my bench remained unchanged. What kind of star falls whole? I opened the drawer of listening tools and took out the shell harp. It is hardly a harp at all. 3 curved wires fixed to a crescent of bone, each wire tuned to a different kind of break. Surface. Core. Memory. The instrument does not make sound unless the star gives it something to translate. The surface wire remained still. There was no frost sound, no grit sound, no thin ticking of a crack under pressure. The core wire gave a low note, pearl-colored in my mind, if sound can have color, and in the workshop it often can. There was no flutter in it, no burnt hollow, but when I brushed the memory wire, it did not answer at once. Then, very faintly, it gave a tone that seemed to come from a long way behind the star. Not broken, not empty, far. I held still until the tone faded. A memory at distance is not a wound, but it can be where a wound is hiding. Next I unrolled the direction combs. Brass for made roads, bone for old roads, glass for reflected roads, thorn for wild roads, shell for water roads, and silk for living ones. The star gave no useful answer to brass, bone, glass, thorn, or shell. But when I held the silk comb above it, the cloudy shell cleared at one edge and then clouded again. I leaned closer. Silk routes are not always roads. They may be migration threads, nest lines, cocoon gardens, weather hammocks, or the paths of creatures that hang before they fly. The star did not brighten, exactly. It steadied. There is a difference. Brightening may be fear, memory, recognition, or pain. Steadiness is rarer. Steadiness means the light has found a shape it does not resist. That was the first useful answer. I searched once more for sky dust with a brush made from the whiskers of a sleeping cloud. It gathered almost nothing, only a faint grayness with no salt, pollen, stone, ash, snow, or storm metal in it. When I touched one antenna to it, I tasted warm silk. Then it was gone. For a while, I did nothing. That is a kind of test too. Some stars reveal their damage when instruments stop leaning over them. They stretch, they flicker, they try to turn toward home. I lowered the lamp until the bench rested in warm dusk and left the silk comb beside the case. The quiet star did not move. No hidden flare, no frightened search, no pull toward any corner of the workshop. When I returned to the main bench, the velvet around it had silvered slightly. Not from escaping light, but from patient contact. A star can make even darkness remember it is being touched. I opened the intake book again. The line "Origin Unknown" waited there, pale and unsatisfied. I added the results beneath it. No heat breach, no fracture, no hidden reflection damage, no route hum, no sky mark, faint silk response. The list should have clarified the matter. Instead, it made the unknown larger. From the ledger shelves came another creak, longer this time. They had been listening? You may be right, I told them. Still, I did not go to the ledgers at once. There was one more thing to check, the sky mark. I had seen no mark on the shell, but not all marks are visible under lamplight. Some appear only when the star is turned away from its own glow. Some must be seen in darkness. Some are not carved, but remembered, and will rise only if the right kind of shadow is placed behind them. I took down a jar of underleaf dusk. The darkness did not pour like liquid, it folded. I let one fold spread behind the star, shielding it from the amber lamp. The star became a pearl shape in leaf darkness. I turned it once with the tongs, then again, and found no mark. When I held the silk comb behind it, the shell showed, for one breath, the faintest suggestion of a curve. It was not a symbol, not a chart mark, but more like the place where a mark had been rubbed smooth by years of being looked at from the same direction. Then the curve vanished. When the workshop light returned to amber, I looked at the star for a long while. The word unknown no longer seemed quite right. A thing can be unknown because no one has ever known it. A thing can also become unknown because the ones who knew it have stopped calling. The star's warmth remained steady. Its shell remained whole. Its memory remained distant. Its only true answer had been to silk. I lifted the star, still in its velvet, and turned toward the shelves. The instruments have had their say. I told it. The star's inner point stirred beneath the cloudy shell, not bright and not afraid, only listening. So now, I said, we ask the workshop whether it remembers. The ledger shelves stood along the back wall of the workshop, in a place where the lamplight never quite reached unless invited. They were made of dark wood from a moonless orchard, and the wood still behaved as if branches were hidden inside it. A shelf would lean when curious, stiffen when offended, and sometimes sigh if a repairer opened the wrong book too confidently. I carried the star to them, still nested in its velvet. The shelves noticed it before I reached them. A drawer near the floor clicked shut, then opened again in embarrassment. A tall book with iron corners shifted its weight against its neighbors. Far above me, where the official charts were kept, a chain of brass labels gave a faint chime. We will begin with the proud books, I told the star, so they cannot complain later. The grand records must be asked first when a whole star arrives unmarked. High constellations, moon gates, winter crowns, navigation fires, palace skies, comet moorings, and the great slow lamps used by migrating moons all have old claims. They may ignore a small star for centuries and still become insulted if a repairer assumes they have no interest in it. I opened the Atlas of Crown Lights. It was heavy, black, edged with silver, and cold in the way only important things know how to be cold. Sharp geometric marks spread across its pages like frost deciding to become law. I passed the star before them. The atlas waited, dignified and blank in its response. This little star carried no memory of being seen by empires. The Book of Harbor Fires gave no tide line, no gull echo, no salt on the shell. The snow trail register opened politely, but no white route appeared. The orchard lanterns, the burrow guides, the mirror roads, and the moon migration beacons all failed to know the little star. The failures did not feel like doors closing. They felt like walking through a large sleeping house and finding every room tidy, every lamp covered, every bed made, but no one awake who had been waiting for you. After the official books had said nothing, the lower shelves began to shift. These were the records that official mapmakers sometimes call marginal, although the workshop never does. A light does not become less real because it shines over a small life, or because only one species knows how to look for it. Some stars shine above burrow mouths, seed beds, egg clusters, crossings between roots, sleeping shells, narrow bridges, and the places where fear becomes movement. Those were the books I trusted more. I knelt before the lower shelves and waited for them to decide which one wished to open. After a while, a narrow shelf near my shoulder creaked forward. It held records with soft covers and faded labels. I read them slowly, letting my antennae taste the heat left in each title. Nest warmers, cave mouth glimmers, egg lamps for deep reeds, burrow edge lamps, first flight guides, waiting lights of minor nurseries, small beacons of near things. At the last label, the star gave its first true answer. It was not a flare. It was not even a brightening. The pearl light beneath the cloudy shell became, for a breath, more present, as if someone behind a curtain had stepped closer without drawing it aside. From within the shelf slid a book bound in gray-green fiber, softer than bark and older than the dust on its spine. This was the Ledger of Near Things. The first time I saw that ledger as a new apprentice, I thought it looked unfinished. It had no metal corners, no chain, no proud clasp. Later I learned that only books expecting to be argued with require armor. The Ledger of Near Things does not argue. It waits. If a light belongs there, the page will eventually admit it. I set the ledger on the reading stand and placed the star beside it. The first pages did not show writing. They showed impressions. Warmth left by nests, the smell of cave mouths, specks of gold from eggs watched through long nights, the pressure of wings not yet opened. The ledger did not organize itself like official books. It moved by nearness, by need, and by the kind of dark a light had once made bearable. I turned the pages slowly. Nest warmers made the star's shell soften, but only slightly. Cave mouth glimmers made the edge of its slate deepen, then pass. First flight guides caused the silk comb in my lower hand to tremble, but the star itself did not move toward them. Then I came to a section where the pages were very thin. The title at the top had almost faded. Cocoon Threshold Stars. The star brightened enough to silver the rim of the velvet case. I stopped turning. The workshop stopped with me. That is how it felt, at least. The blue star's cooling cup became quiet. The burrow star under its moss cloth stopped ticking. Even the jars of darkness overhead seemed to hang more carefully from their hooks. Cocoon threshold stars are not placed high in the proud dark. They are set low, near the edge of nursery skies, where young winged things dream inside silk. Their task is not to guide a journey already begun. They do not call from the road or signal from a destination. They watch the place before leaving, when a small life has changed enough to go, and not yet enough to believe it can. I had studied them, but never repaired one. Their threads were made from patience rather than distance. If pulled too tight, they dimmed. If tied too firmly, they refused to rise. A star like that does not urge the cocoon open. It simply remains until the sleeper inside understands that the dark beyond the silk has a shape. I brought the ledger closer to the star. The page warmed, but still no writing came. Sometimes the Ledger of Near Things requires the light to be turned, because small stars are known from certain angles. Some were watched only from below, some through eyelids, or silk, or shell. I angled the star so that its light passed across the page and through the silk comb at the same time. A line appeared. It did not write itself in ink. Ink belongs to hands. This was written by recognition, rising from the page as if the words had been sleeping underneath and had opened their eyes. Southern Nursery Band of the Pale-Ringed Gardens. Another line surfaced below it. A sign to the 7th Silk Grove. The star's shell cleared at one edge. A scent moved through the air. Warm silk, green dusk, and the inside of leaves after rain. A third line appeared. Held through 17 hatchings. The words glowed for a moment, then settled into the page. 17 hatchings. Not a brief assignment, then. This star had watched a place through generations of winged lives, quietly enough that no official chart had ever cared to mark it. The next lines took longer. The page darkened first, not with ink, but with absence. The fiber lost its warmth near the lower margin. I felt the ledger search for a receiving sky, the way a hand searches a familiar shelf for a tool that is no longer there. Then the words came, faint and narrow. No current route. No receiving sky. A star may lose a route in many ways. Storms can twist them. Comets can cut them. Map makers can change them by arrogance. But no receiving sky is different. It means the place that held the light no longer answers when the workshop tries to return it. The last line arrived almost reluctantly. Released from watch by absence. I read it once, and then again. The phrase did not change. It did not mean the star had failed. It did not mean the Silk Grove had rejected it. It meant that the need beneath it had thinned until the old bond had loosened on its own. I looked down at the small, unbroken thing in the velvet. So that is why you fell, I murmured. The star did not flare. It did not correct me. But the glow beneath its shell shifted, and for a moment the workshop smelled again of warm silk, green dusk, and wings not yet opened. There were rules for such findings. A star with no receiving sky could be placed in the quiet drawers until a new chart was approved. A star whose old duty had ended could be cooled, wrapped, and stored among the unclaimed lights. A star that still glowed steadily could sometimes be returned to its last recorded position, because old duties leave grooves in the dark, and grooves are easier to follow than questions. Rules are useful in a workshop. They keep the benches from becoming altars, and the repairers from mistaking tenderness for skill. I believed that. Yet I had seen how the star remained whole through every test, and how it answered only to silk. This was not a case for the quiet drawers. Not yet. I kept one claw between the pages so the entry would not lose itself, then reached for the memory lens. It was no wider than a seed cap, set in a thin brass ring, made from clear night water hardened under eclipse. Through it, a repairer may see the last true task a star remembers. The lens does not show everything. It is merciful in some ways and exact in others. It refuses invention. What it shows is usually small, because most light is used in small ways. I brought the lens to the main bench with the ledger open beside me and the star still held in its velvet nest. I trimmed the lamp lower. The workshop prepared itself around us. The shelves leaned back. The direction combs settled into silence. The night water bowl, though covered, gave a faint click as if it had recognized a cousin. I placed the fallen star beneath the lens. For a moment nothing happened, only the amber lamp, the cloudy shell, the open ledger, and my hands waiting in the warm dark. Then the pale point deep inside the star brightened once, not toward me and not toward the room, but backward. The memory began to rise. The memory lens did not show me a place at first. It showed me warmth. That is often how old light remembers. Not in shapes, not in clear distances, but in temperatures, pressures, and changes of air. A green dusk came first, warm at the edges, then the close hush of folded silk. Then a slow movement overhead, too wide to be wind and too gentle to be weather. My antennae tasted leaves after rain, pale dust, and the living sweetness of things not yet awake. The lens cleared by degrees, and I saw the seventh silk grove. It did not stand on ordinary ground. The grove hung beneath a pale ringed moon in a nursery sky that seemed to breathe in long, careful intervals. Smooth stones floated just above the dark soil. Between them stretched threads of living silk, some taut and bright, some older and softened by use. They made paths, hammocks, bridges, and quiet hanging places. Along them rested hundreds of cocoons, each the color of unlit pearl. The fallen star shone above them. In the memory, it was not grand. It did not rule the grove or crown it. It hung low in the nursery dark, close enough for the sleeping ones to know it, far enough not to press on their dreams. Its light was small, steady, and warm in the way of a hand placed outside a closed door. Inside the cocoons, young winged ones turned in their sleep. I could not see them fully, only the suggestions their bodies made against the silk. A new antenna uncurling, a folded wing remembering that it had been made to open. Now and then, a cocoon trembled too sharply, and the star softened its edge. When one sleeper pressed close to the inside of its silk and stopped there, uncertain of the dark beyond, the star did not call or command. It simply remained. I understood then why cocoon stars are repaired with caution. Most guide lights know how to point. Road stars lean forward. Harbor stars answer from ahead. Burrow lamps hold the way home from beneath. But this star's duty was stranger and more delicate. It watched the moment before movement. It held the edge between safety and becoming, and it did so without pulling either side too hard. The grove was not silent, though its sounds were almost too small to hear. Silk tightened with a noise like breath through folded paper. The floating stones shifted when the pale ringed moon drew in and out. Caretakers moved among the lower threads as dim shapes, touching a cocoon here, smoothing a strand there, carrying bowls of leaf darkness and warm mist. They had no names in the memory. They were only their work, which seemed right. The lens drew me closer to one cocoon. It hung a little apart from the others, tied between two stones veined with blue. The silk around it trembled with restless pressure. Whatever slept inside had reached the edge of opening too early. A fine line appeared in the cocoon, then sealed itself. Another line appeared, lower this time, and the body within pushed against it with uncertain force. One of the caretakers came near, but did not touch. The star above the grove dimmed its outer glow and warmed its center. I had never seen a star do that. Usually, a frightened light throws itself brighter, as if brightness alone can solve what carefulness must solve. This star did the opposite. It made the dark around the cocoon gentler, less like an emptiness to escape and more like a room that would still be there later. The trembling slowed, the line in the silk faded. The sleeper inside turned once and settled back into the deep work of becoming. Another cocoon opened later in the grove, not too early this time, but with great hesitation. A narrow head emerged, wet antennae folded close, and then nothing else happened for a long while. The young winged one clung half inside and half outside its old shelter, neither retreating nor continuing. The caretakers waited below. The silk paths waited. The pale ringed moon breathed. The star waited too. This waiting was not empty. It was made of small permissions. The light fell on the nearest floating stone, on the first silk bridge, on the side of the cocoon where the opening widened. It did not make the young one brave. That would have been too much to ask of light. It only made the next place visible enough that fear did not have to invent it. After a time, the young one pulled free. Its wings were folded and damp, marked with fine silver lines that caught the star's glow. It stepped onto the silk thread, slipped once, held, and became still. No one hurried it. Eventually, it moved to the nearest stone, then to the next thread, and there it rested as if that short distance had been a great journey. Through many such nights, the star remained. It cooled when dreams grew too hot. It warmed when fear made the silk tighten. It dimmed when a sleeper needed privacy and brightened when the first stone had to be found. Again and again, the star did not lead from far away. It made the nearest next thing visible. That was its gift. The memory shifted toward a quieter part of the grove, where the cocoons hung farther apart. This was not yet abandonment. It was only change, and change is often polite at first. The caretakers came less frequently, but still came. Some silk paths were repaired, others left to sag if no cocoon hung from them. New lights, faint and distant, had appeared beyond the grove in a broad spiral. At first, those new lights seemed only decorative, perhaps another nursery far away. They were colder than the cocoon star, clearer, more precise. Their glow arranged itself in measured arcs. A young winged creature leaving the grove looked toward them once, then continued along the old silk path. The threshold star above the seventh grove did not react. It had no reason to. Not yet. Change came to the seventh silk grove without announcing itself as change. There was no storm that tore the silk paths. No predator came out of the higher dark. No moon cracked. No proud new law declared the old grove useless. The first signs were much smaller than that, and perhaps harder for any faithful light to understand. The new spiral lights beyond the pale-ringed moon grew brighter by patient degrees. For a long while, both systems existed together. Some sleepers were hung in the old silk. Others were carried beyond the grove to suspended glass pods that turned slowly under the new spiral lights. The pods were not cruel. They were clean, strong, and made to hold a steady temperature. Their glass caught the spiral light and folded it inward, so the young ones inside slept under a map of gentle arcs. I wanted, perhaps unfairly, to dislike those new lights. It would have made the story easier. A bad replacement, a cold design where warmth had once been, but the memory would not allow that. The spiral lights were careful in their own way. The caretakers seemed relieved by them, not because the old star had failed, but because the nursery had changed and needed a different kind of order. The fallen star did not dim when the first row of glass pods filled. It watched the old cocoons that remained. It did not shine toward the new nursery, and the new lights did not answer it. They belonged to another agreement with the dark. There was room in that sky for both, for a time. Then the grove thinned. Where hundreds of cocoons had once rested, there were dozens, then fewer. The spaces between them grew larger, and the star's light traveled through more emptiness before touching silk. It adjusted itself to that, widening slightly, then dimming again so the remaining sleepers would not feel exposed. It learned to keep company with absence while still serving life. That is how faithful lights become tired. Not all at once, but by continuing to answer after the call has grown faint. The old nursery became beautiful in a different way. Moss thickened on the floating stones, pale threads loosened and made soft arcs. Empty cocoons hung like moons that had forgotten their tides. Dust from the ringed moon settled over everything and gave the grove a silver skin. A traveler passing through might have thought the place peaceful. Perhaps it was peaceful. But peace is not always the same as being needed. The lens moved to one cocoon hanging near the edge of the grove. It was late in the memory. The old silk paths around it had been patched many times, and the floating stones on either side no longer rose evenly when the moon breathed. Between them, on a thread repaired with leaf fiber and old silver dust, hung a single small cocoon. It was smaller than the others I had seen, pale and slightly uneven, patched along one side where the silk had thinned before its time. The newer spiral light shone in the distance over the glass pod terraces. This cocoon remained in the old grove, perhaps because it had been made there before the transfer, perhaps because the sleeper inside needed the older dark, perhaps because not every life can be moved just because the path around it has changed. The star above the grove warmed. Carefully, I felt that warmth through the memory lens and recognized what it cost. Not danger, not damage yet, but expenditure. A star can spend itself in many small ways. It can hold steady when the sky around it has stopped helping. It can give old comfort to the last creature that still knows how to receive it. The cocoon trembled once, then stilled. The star softened the space around it. The cocoon trembled again. A line appeared along the patched side, thin as a hair. For a while, nothing followed. No caretaker came. That was not neglect. The memory did not show cruelty. The caretakers were far away in the newer nursery, tending many glass pods under the spiral lights. Their absence was part of the change, not an act of forgetting by a single hand. Still, the old grove felt larger around that one cocoon. The star lowered as much as a star can lower without falling. Its light touched the first stone, then the thread between, then the torn edge of silk. It did not urge the sleeper outward. It did not make the grove falsely bright. It simply held the nearest shapes in place, so the creature inside would not have to imagine the whole dark at once. The seam widened. A narrow head emerged, followed by two wet antennae. Then came a pause so long that I felt myself stop breathing in the workshop. The young winged one remained half hidden, its folded body still inside the cocoon, its head turned toward the old path. It did not seem to know whether there was anywhere left to go. The star made the second stone visible. Only that. Not the whole sky, not the spiral lights, not the open distance beyond the grove, only the second stone. After a while, the young one pulled one limb free and touched the thread. It slipped, recovered, and held still. Another limb emerged. Then another. The folded wings came last, damp and creased against the creature's back. It rested on the outside of its empty cocoon. The old grove waited around it. Moss, loosened silk, uneven stones, the distant spiral, the pale ringed moon breathing overhead. The star waited too, but now I understood that its waiting had become a kind of labor. There was only one small creature and one old light spending itself carefully over the first crossing. The young one opened one wing. The membrane caught the star's glow and turned silver for a breath. Then it folded the wing back. The star did not change. It did not express disappointment. It kept the stone visible, and the thread, and the safe shadow beneath the next arc of silk. The second attempt took longer. The young one shifted its feet several times, turned toward the cocoon as though considering returning, then faced the lit stone again. Its wing opened, then the other. They shook under their own newness. The star warmed the air around them just enough to dry the edges. At last, the creature moved. Not flight, not yet. It crossed from the torn cocoon to the thread, from the thread to the nearest stone, and there it rested with its wings slightly open. Later, the young one flew. The memory did not make a spectacle of it. It showed only a short lift, a clumsy angle, a near fall, and then a correction. The creature crossed to another strand, then another, following the old path until it reached the outer edge of the grove. There, it turned once toward the star. Perhaps it saw the light. Perhaps it only felt the dark had an edge. Then it flew toward the distant spiral, where the newer nursery lights received it without ceremony. After that, the seventh silk grove held no cocoons. I wished, for a moment, that the memory would end there. The last sleeper gone, the duty completed, the star free to return to whatever process in the sky handles such things. But old tasks do not always know how to dismiss the lights that serve them. The star remained above the empty grove. At first, that seemed reasonable. A caretaker might return, a late cocoon might be brought back, a sleeper might have been missed. The star had watched 17 hatchings. Patience was not an effort it had to invent. It continued to shine with the same careful softness, lighting stones, threads, and the places where cocoons had once hung. No one came. The memory passed through nights that were nearly identical, except for the slow work of absence. The green vapor dish dried completely. Moss climbed the cracked blue vein of one stone. A thread snapped under the weight of moon dust and hung loose. Empty silk doors curled inward. The newer spiral lights brightened in the distance and became not new, but normal. The star did not resent them. I could feel that through the lens. There was no anger in the light, no sharpness, no refusal to accept what had changed. The star was not jealous of the spiral. It simply did not know where else to put its faithfulness. That, more than sorrow, was what loosened it. The caretakers came once to gather the remaining empty silk. They moved gently, as they always had. One paused under the star and lifted their face. The star warmed at once, perhaps expecting a new sleeper, a request, a sign that the grove was still its watch. But the caretaker only touched one of the old threads, bowed their head in the manner of that species, and continued bundling the abandoned silk. When they left, they took the last hanging cocoons and most of the repaired strands. The stones remained, the moss remained, the pale-ringed moon remained, the star remained. The old grove became open space. The official maps, if they ever noticed it, might have called the place cleared. The ledger called it absence. The star called it nothing, because stars do not always have a word for the end of being needed. The lens showed the final night of the old watch. Rain that was not water had fallen earlier. The moss was dark with it. The distant spiral lights shone cold and careful beyond the ringed moon. The star hung in its familiar place above the empty grove, pale and steady, lighting no cocoon, no trembling silk, no wet wings, no first stone chosen by a frightened creature. A wind passed through the abandoned paths. It caught the last loose strand and lifted it. The strand rose toward the star, not touching, only pointing. For a moment the star brightened out of habit, answering the movement below as if it might be need. But the strand fell back. There was no sleeper. No crossing. No one at the edge. The star's orbit did not snap. There was no bright disaster, no crack, no sound that any official instrument would have recorded. Its old thread simply loosened, the way a knot loosens when the hands that tied it are long gone and the thing it held has learned another shape. The star sank a little, then more, not falling in fear, not falling in failure, only descending through the place where its duty used to be, carrying all that unused gentleness with it. The memory faded before the courier found it. Perhaps that part did not belong to the star. Perhaps the star had no wish to remember being carried away. The green dust thinned, the pale-ringed moon dissolved, and the scent of warm silk passed out of the lens. I was back in the workshop. The amber lamp burned low over the bench. The ledger of near things lay open beside my wrist. The memory lens had cleared, and beneath it the fallen star rested in its black velvet nest, uncracked, unscorched, and whole. But now I could hear its silence differently. It was not empty silence. It was the quiet after a duty has ended and no new one has arrived. The ledger page still held the words, Southern Nursery Band of the Pale Ring Gardens, assigned to the 7th Silk Grove, held through 17 hatchings. No current route, no receiving sky, released from watch by absence. The last line seemed gentler now, and sadder, because I had seen that absence had not been neglect, nor cruelty, nor sudden forgetting. It had been the soft completion of a world moving on. I touched the edge of the velvet, not the star. "We will not put you in a drawer," I said. The star's inner point brightened once. Perhaps relief, perhaps only memory. Beyond the bench, the old rule drawer beneath the east side of the room gave a wooden knock. It knew, as I did, that tenderness alone was not a repair. The star could not stay in the velvet forever. A fallen light, even a whole one, must either be returned, stored, or given a thread it can bear. So I went to open it. The old rule drawer was heavier than any other drawer in the workshop. It sat beneath the east bench, where the floor curved slightly downward, as though the room itself had learned to bend under the weight of what was stored there. The rules inside were not the brass tags we used every shift. Those hung openly from the tool rail, polished by many hands and simple enough to remember when sleep had begun to gather behind the eyes. Cool before polishing. Listen before threading. Never bind a frightened star. The deeper drawer held older instructions, written when the workshop was younger and more certain of itself. They were not foolish rules. A foolish rule does not survive long in a place full of fallen light. But old rules become heavy when they have been obeyed for longer than anyone has been asking what kindness they were first meant to protect. Inside lay narrow strips of rule vellum, each wrapped around a dark pin. I found the strip marked for cocoon stars. The vellum uncurled across the bench as soon as I laid it beside the ledger. Its letters rose slowly, as if remembering the exact shape of obedience. Return the light to the last known watch, unless the light refuses the thread. I read the line twice. There was mercy in it. I tried to remember that. The rule did not say force. It did not say correct the star by returning it. It said return, unless. The word unless mattered. A great deal of kindness in the workshop lives inside small words like that. The fallen star lay in the velvet nest between the open ledger and the rule vellum. It had been quiet since the memory faded. Not empty, not asleep, only waiting to see whether understanding would become another kind of pressure. "I have to ask," I told it. The star did not answer in words, but its inner point remained visible beneath the cloudy shell. That was enough. I chose the old route thread from the narrow case beside the ledger shelves. It looked nearly colorless on the spool, but when I passed it over the ledger entry for the 7th Silk Grove, it took on a faint green shine. It remembered the way. That made me cautious. A thread remembering a place does not mean a star should return there. It only means the road still has a shape. I set the thread through the smallest needle, the one carved from a sliver of sleeping comet bone. We do not use that needle for piercing. The needle guides the thread close enough for the star's own memory to reach toward it or away from it. The first loop went around the star without touching. The second narrowed and began to hum. By the third, the workshop smelled faintly of warm silk and green dusk. The old grove answered from somewhere very far away. Moss on floating stones, loose strands moving in wind, the pale ringed moon breathing over an empty nursery. For one brief moment, the star's core brightened out of habit. Then it dimmed. The change was slight, but I felt it along both antennae. Not fear exactly, and not pain, but something close to the feeling of being asked to sit again in a room where one has already waited too long. The star did not flare. It did not crack. It did not push the thread away in any visible manner. It only became quieter, and the pearl light inside it pulled back from the edge of the shell. That was refusal enough. I unwound the loop slowly. The green shine drained from the thread as it returned to the spool, like evening leaving a field. When the thread lay still again, the star's inner point came back to where I could see it. "You remember it," I whispered, "but you do not belong there now." The workshop settled around those words. A clamp clicked shut by itself at the far table. The old rule drawer remained open, which meant the workshop did not object, though it had not yet offered an answer either. I placed the route thread back in its case and sat for a while before the bench. It is easy, after a rule refuses to solve the matter, to become too creative too quickly. Apprentices are especially prone to this. We discover one exception and begin imagining ourselves wiser than the drawer. That is how stars end up with clever repairs they cannot bear. So I considered the ordinary alternatives. The path to the dome was narrow and familiar, but that night it felt longer because I walked it slowly. A repaired star should never be hurried toward height. We passed cooling cups where other small lights rested under lids of blue glass. The blue threshold star I had polished earlier had finally stopped dreaming through its crack. The burrow star beneath the moss cloth gave one low tick as we passed, steady and deep. The star in my hands had something gentler and more difficult than a place. An agreement. At the foot of the dome ladder, I stopped. A release is not a throw. Nothing repaired should be cast away from the hands that mended it. A star must be lifted until it remembers lifting. The difference matters in the thread. If a star feels itself thrown, even gently, the thread can tighten in fear and turn a repair into a second falling. So I climbed slowly. Above, the released dome waited with its ribs folded shut. It was made from dark brass and old sky bone, patched in places with glass from several moons. Some panes were blue and thick, some thin as frozen breath, some faintly green around the edges. No two pieces of moon glass remembered the same night, which is why the dome never shows exactly the same darkness twice. The release cradle stood at the center of the floor beneath it, 3 curved arms, a velvet hollow, a ring for the thread. It had returned more lights than any map had ever recorded. Harbor stars, rain stars, corridor stars, beetle guides, storm lamps, funeral glimmers, nest warmers, and shy green forest lights that only appear after everyone inside the trees has stopped pretending not to be lost. I set the repaired star into the velvet hollow. The common threshold thread followed, lying in a loose curve between the spool in my lower hands and the ring at the cradle's edge. I fixed the held end to the ring and left the loose end free. That free end lifted slightly in the still air, as though already listening beyond the dome. For a moment, I did nothing. I let the cradle learn the star's weight. I let the thread understand the ring. I let my hands remember that they were no longer repairing, only accompanying. Then I touched the dome lever. The ribs opened without noise. Night entered. Not one night. Many. That is why the workshop hangs where it does. Above the release dome, the layers of darkness pass over one another like folded cloth. A repairer may see nursery skies, city skies, burrow skies, hollow moons, rain belts, roadless oceans, the long paths between sleeping planets, and the private darks where a creature stands at the edge of becoming. They do not appear all at once to the eye. They arrive as pressures, scents, colors at the edge of sight, and small changes in the thread. The star lifted from the cradle only a finger's width at first. I did not help it. Another finger's width. The thread followed, unspooling from my lower hand in a line so fine I felt it more than saw it. The star hovered under the open dome, surrounded by all those layered nights, and for a moment I wondered whether old faithfulness would pull at it one last time. Perhaps it did. Its light turned faintly green at the edge. A scent of moss and warm silk passed through the dome. Somewhere among the folded darks, the 7th silk grove still existed, or the memory of it did. The floating stones, the loosened threads, the pale ringed moon, the empty place where the last cocoon had opened. The star leaned toward that old watch so slightly that only the thread told me. I held still. A repairer must not compete with memory. To yank the star away would have been another kind of binding. To close the dome would have been fear disguised as care. I kept my hands open around the spool and let the old green light pass through the star without catching. The star dimmed, then steadied. The loose end of the common threshold thread trembled. Far away, in one of the folded nights, something small was waiting. I could not see it clearly. Common threshold does not belong to any one world, so it never shows only one. It gives glimpses, each brief and incomplete, because its work is not to choose for the star, but to show where gentleness may be useful. I saw a shell with a hairline crack under a red moon. Inside it, Something turned slowly toward the line of opening, not yet ready to break it wider. The repaired star's light brushed the edge of that shell, not bright enough to force it, only clear enough to make the crack seem less like an ending. The thread trembled again. I saw a young burrower at the mouth of winter soil. Behind it lay warmth, roots, familiar walls, the soft press of others asleep. Ahead lay white ground and a darkness full of cold stars. The creature did not step out, it only lifted its face. The star's pearl light touched the snow just beyond the burrow mouth, making one small patch of outside visible. Then there was a silver-winged creature gripping the underside of a leaf while rain gathered along its back. Its wings were nearly dry, nearly ready, but the space below was wide and wet and unknown. The repaired star appeared as a pale point in a puddle far beneath it, reflected through rain. The creature opened one wing a little, then held. The star brightened. Not much. Enough. Other glimpses came as soft openings in the layered dark. An egg rocking once in a nest of black reeds. A small swimmer at the lip of a tide pool, waiting for the next gentle lift. A seed under glass, splitting its coat in silence. None of them called loudly. Beginning places seldom do. They only made a little room for light. The star rose another finger's width. Then another. It did not shoot upward like a proud constellation star. It drifted, slowly and with care, as if the dark itself were learning how to hold it again. The common threshold thread lengthened behind it, passing from the spool, through the cradle ring, and out into the layered night. The loose end remained loose, moving toward no single destination and yet not wandering. When the last visible loop left the dome, I felt a soft tug along my antennae. Agreement? The star found its height. It was not fixed in the manner of constellation lights, nor wandering like lost sparks. It settled into a gentler condition between those states, held by the common thread and by the small needs it would answer. It would appear low, wherever a beginning felt too wide, wherever leaving felt too lonely, wherever some small life needed the dark to have an edge. For a while, I watched it. The pearl point hovered among the folded nights. At one angle, I could almost see the old green of the seventh silk grove still within it, not erased, not denied, only no longer its only shape. Then the layered darkness shifted, and the star became small enough that I could not tell whether I was seeing the light itself or only the comfort it had left in my eyes. I closed the dome. The ribs folded back together in silence. The moon glass panes dimmed. The release cradle stood empty, holding a slight warmth in its velvet hollow. Back below, the workshop woke by degrees. One lamp warmed, then another. A brass clamp opened with a tiny yawn. The blue star in its cooling cup gave a satisfied tick. The burrow star beneath the moss cloth continued its deep sleeping rhythm. The ledger shelves remained still, which was their way of saying there was nothing to correct. I carried the empty spool end back to the main bench. The common threshold thread had not broken. It had simply extended beyond the workshop, as such thread must. On the spool remained enough for future repairs, though it looked slightly changed now. A little pearl white had joined its shifting colors. I wrapped it in gray silk and returned it to the highest western shelf. The empty sky case waited on the intake tray. Inside, a little dust of pearl light remained in the seam of the black velvet. It was not waste. No gentle light is ever waste in a workshop. I brushed the dust into a small envelope and wrote on it, "Common threshold residue, formerly 7th Silk Grove." Then I returned the tools. The memory lens went back to its velvet hook. The shell harp returned to the listening drawer. The silk comb was brushed with underleaf darkness and rolled into its place. The comet bone needle, which had carried both the old root thread and the new thread close to the star, I wiped with a dry cloth until it gave no scent of either. A tool should remember enough to be wise, but not so much that it begins making decisions. At the main bench, I opened the slate intake book. The first lines waited where I had written them. One fallen star. No visible damage. Light stable. Origin unknown. I crossed out nothing. A beginning record should remain honest about what was first understood. Beneath it, I added the rest slowly, letting the chalk settle after each phrase. Origin found in the ledger of near things. Former watch. 7th Silk Grove, Southern Nursery Band of the Pale Ringed Gardens. Held through 17 hatchings. Former watch ended by absence. Star refused old root thread. Repaired by common threshold thread. Released by agreement. I waited. The chalk words remained. That matters. Some repairs look complete until the record refuses them. The line smears, or pales, or curls itself off the page like ash. This one stayed. The book accepted what the ledger had accepted and what the star had accepted under the dome. Only then did I close the intake book. Near the hatch, the small bell made no sound. No new case waited on the tray. No courier tapped from the higher dark. The workshop had returned to its ordinary breathing, though ordinary is never quite the same after a repair has changed the room that witnessed it. For a while, I stood beneath the closed dome and listened with both antennae. Somewhere beyond any single receiving sky, the repaired star was learning its wider route. Perhaps, under a red moon, a shell found the first line of opening less frightening. Perhaps, at the mouth of winter soil, a small creature placed one foot outside and then drew it back, which was also a beginning. Perhaps, beneath a trembling leaf, a silver wing dried slowly in the reflected pearl light. I would not know. A repairer rarely sees the full result. We mend what comes to the bench. We listen as well as we can. We offer the thread that does not make the light smaller. Then we let the dome open. That was enough for the night's work. Marlowe here again. The record ends there, with the workshop quiet and the repaired star no longer belonging to one abandoned grove, but to many gentle beginnings. I have turned the lamp on my desk a little lower now. It seems happier that way. If there is a world you have wondered about, a place you have imagined, or a quiet corner of another universe you would like us to look into, you may leave it in the comments. Marlowe has a strange habit of gently opening doors we did not even know existed. Until next time, this is Marlowe wishing you a soft night, a kind darkness, and a small light wherever the next threshold waits.